Welcome to your unfiltered guide to navigating the workplace as a Black woman, the Black Womaning in Corporate America podcast with your host, Nicole S. Palmer. I am the editor-in-chief and founding partner of Delnick Media, an independent publishing company that amplifies underrepresented and marginalized voices. This podcast was inspired by my best-selling book, Playing the Game While Black Womaning in Corporate America. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Black Womaning in Corporate America with your host, Nicole S. Palmer. We are so excited to have you here today because we have a very special guest with us today, and I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm sure most of her quite well from her very successful book, Hush Money. And so now she's coming back to us with another fantastic gem. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my very special guest today, Jacquie Abram. Jacquie, please take it away. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that marvelous introduction. I really appreciate it. Just to give your audience a little more information about me and who I am and what I do. I am Jacquie Abram. I am the international best-selling and award-winning author of Hush Money, How One Woman Proved Systemic Racism in Her Workplace and Kept Her Job. The sequel, Hush Money, The Cost of Being Black in Corporate America. And my newest book, which I'm just absolutely super excited about this one. This is Surviving in a Toxic Workplace Strategies to help you protect your career. But in addition to being an author, I am also the global toxic workplace consultant, employee advocate. I actually bring on clients. I've got well over 100 clients, and I help many Black women, Black men, and literally anyone who is in a toxic workplace, having trouble navigating it. They're seeing the signs, the warnings that they're about to be terminated and they need some help. You know, that's where I come into the picture. And so I essentially help folks that are dealing with toxicity in the workplace walk away from these toxic jobs with pockets full, not empty-handed, as people tend to do. And then in addition to that, I also teach a powerful master class called How to Fight Discrimination in a Toxic Workplace. And I've got a lot going on right now. I'm really excited about the work that my daughter Delilah and I are doing. And just really excited to be here.
Thank you so much for that. And actually, that's how you and I met because of my situation that I was dealing with at the time. Absolutely. And what a difference. Has it been 2 years already? Yes. What a difference some time and distance makes. Mm-hmm. And you definitely came at a time that I desperately needed some guidance. And I also needed to know that it wasn't in my head. Right. And that I did have value, that I was actually being gaslit and I was being the victim of a lot of the toxicity that was taking place. So I couldn't not, on the heels of moving on and creating this new chapter and talk about Black womaning in corporate America, you can't really talk about that to me without talking about your work. It's so vital and critical. And I'm so grateful that you have the opportunity to come on here and talk about this latest addition, this fantastic resource that is now available to us. Yes. And I just would love to, one of the things I love to ask my guests is their origin story. Okay. And so before we dive into the book, I would love to hear your origin story. How did the Jacquie Abram that we know as this international best-selling author, this advocate, staunch advocate for workers' rights and for how to navigate and how to survive toxicity, and not just to survive it, but to walk away with some coin. Yes. So how did that come to be? Let's tell us a little bit about your origin story there.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'd like to just read the very first chapter, or just a tiny bit from that here, because I actually go into detail so that people understand who I am and why I'm so passionate about the work that I'm doing. So I'll just read you a tiny bit.
Please, of course.
All right. So the chapter is called Hush Money. Okay. I never knew the cost of being Black in corporate America. The price I would pay with my dignity and fundamental rights as a human being. Just to have a job that wasn't in a low-income sector. a job that had a satisfying career path and gave me and my family a chance to live the American dream. But if I knew then what I know now, maybe I would have done things differently before taking the job that traumatized and nearly destroyed me. Maybe I would have bleached my dark skin to make it lighter, or removed my long dookie braids to straighten my hair. Maybe I would have bought blue contacts to hide my brown eyes and got a nose job with the butt reduction too. Do all the things I shoulda, woulda, coulda done to look less like me and more like them, just to fit into a mold I had no part in creating. No, I know me. And even if I could go back in time to that fateful day that changed my life in the worst way, I wouldn't change a thing, because I'm the strong, beautiful Black woman God created me to be.
Yes. Yes. Snaps, snaps, snaps. Love that. That's so powerful, Jacquie. And I thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that will resonate with so many of us. So many of us think that there's something wrong with us, that it's our fault, that it's all in our head, or maybe if just this, maybe if just that, things could be better or different, but it's not us, it's the system.
It's the system.
So that is so powerful, and that alone should make people want to go buy this book.
And that's just a little bit of chapter
Right.
called Hush Money.
That's just a taste. And so I love that you share that, because I do feel that especially this resonates so much with Black women specifically. And that's what we're all about here. And it's all about equipping us with the tools and the resources that we need to actually be able to navigate these toxic workplaces. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit more about this next chapter, if you will, a little bit on the nose of this book that you wrote on the heels of Hush Money, and then also Hush Money 2. And now you have this another, just when we thought we couldn't have any more resources, you come to us with this new resource, which is so specifically poignant and important, especially now, because more and more of us are starting to come to grips with the fact that maybe it isn't me. Maybe it's my toxic workplace. Maybe I do work in a toxic workplace. And so talk to us a little bit more about that, why you felt the need, that why this was an important book, especially now.
Okay, just to give you a little bit of history, I was in a very dark place when I wrote Hush Money, the first book, so the purple book. This was after my career in higher education had been repeatedly derailed by toxic leaders, who didn't think that I deserved the six-figure positions that I held. I was a Black woman. And when these leaders began targeting me, they followed a playbook, and that this book is about. This exposes the playbook that is being used right now to get thousands upon thousands of Black women, out of their positions. So a lot of my clients earn well over six figures. But this playbook is used whether you are the custodian or whether you are the CEO. It might surprise you to know that I have district attorneys who are my clients.
Oh, I believe it.
And there's a set of rules, they're unspoken rules, but they stay true, and it's devastatingly effective in how coordinated they are. And in my particular case, when these leaders began targeting me, they inspired others in the organization to conspire with them. And so before I knew it, I wasn't just dealing with one targeting me anymore. I was now dealing with a lot of people who were all working together to destroy my career. And what makes that particular part of the playbook so effective is if one person's targeting you, you can't put the pressure on you enough and as frequently as they need you, because their methods are designed to break this Black woman to such a degree that she cannot recover from what she's gone through. It's designed to break her like she's a wild horse that they are determined to tame. And that's why it takes other people to get involved. So you find yourself in the middle of what I call a war zone, where every day there is something, whether you're employee accusing you of harassment falsely, whether your employee decides to stop doing their work, okay, whether someone in the other department is accusing you of reverse racism, okay, and other, just ridiculous, okay, just ridiculous, okay, seriously, okay, whether it is setting you up with training that is so ridiculously subpar because they're leaving out the vital information that you need to be effective in doing your job, okay? In my case, my boss went the extra mile, and he didn't just leave out information that he knew that I needed to do my job. He actually gave me the wrong information about how to do my job. So he started steering me in the wrong direction immediately. And I'll tell you, this is happening so frequently, and I have clients in other countries as well.
Yeah.
I have a LinkedIn Live event starting in 3 days. What is today? Today's the 22nd, so in 2 days.
Oh, 24th, yeah.
Do you know over 5,000 people have registered to attend this event called White Tears and Black Trauma? Okay.
Yeah.
And so that should give you an indication of how many people are dealing with this playbook. And so that's what this newest book is. This is the playbook. It exposes the playbook. But not only does it expose the playbook, it takes you through the scenario. It gives you the warnings that you need to look for to tell you if you are being set up to be fired. It shows you in plain color, okay?
Yeah.
Through the eyes of a character I created to be able to do the work that I'm doing, called Ebony. But then it gives you the strategy. This is how I dealt with that. So this book is full of all the emails that I sent and how I protected myself and how I was able to repeatedly. I got 5 different large settlements. I got multiple 6-figure settlements because my career was derailed 5 different times, but I never walked away from a single toxic job empty-handed.
There you go.
I know how to fight. And so what this book does is it actually gives you the templates and it gives you the strategy, but it shows you how to identify the warnings, because if you can identify the warnings, then you can see, okay, they're going to be firing me in about 30 days. Okay. It makes it very clear, and this book is accurate. Okay. So if you want, I can give you an example of how that flows.
Of course. And I'm very also need to know about at least one of the unspoken rules. We need to tell our listeners about it so they can get the book and learn all the rest.
Okay, very good. We'll start with something very simple right from the beginning, okay? So the character that I created, like I said, her name is Ebony. And Ebony finds herself, she's been working dead-end jobs for all of her life. She's gone through so much even before she finally gets a job at this college through a temp agency. And she's determined she's going to do her absolute best. She's going to use the computer skills that she learned at a safe house for abused women to impress this boss in hopes that he might hire her. And so he was impressed, okay? And we're going to start right there, and I'll just show you how the book is laid out. We'll start with just a little bit, okay? It was a chilly morning in the city of Austin, Texas, on the day my life was changed. I was sitting at the dining table with Mom, sipping a cup of coffee and browsing the want ads in the newspaper as she read the headline news. Mom, a beautiful woman born in Shreveport, Louisiana, was 51 years old with a taller than average height, a slender physique, caramel colored skin as smooth as silk, and glistening green eyes. She had long, shiny black hair, dressed with a modest elegance, and had a personality that could charm a poisonous snake. Mom adopted me when I was born and named me Ebony to highlight the beauty she saw in my dark skin. And although I didn't look anything like her, she was an amazing parent to me and was great in so many ways. The want ads, on the other hand, were not so great. Jobs that I was qualified for and that also paid well were far and few between. And I was tired of working dead-end jobs that made it hard to make ends meet. So that just gives you the introduction.
Yeah.
to her and her mom. So while she's sitting there with her mom, she gets a phone call, and let me find that part here. The phone rang. It was a call from a woman at the temp agency I had signed up with 2 weeks earlier. Abram Career Institute needs a secretary. It's a temp position that pays $16.83 an hour. That's about $35,000 a year. You interested? Heck yeah. That's a lot of money, I thought to myself, before calmly verbalizing my interest. And that's where my story begins, with the call that changed my life in the best way and also the worst way. The call that began my 6-figure career in higher education and my descent into racial discrimination hell. So now we'll fast forward a little bit. In January 2012, my journey at Abram's main campus began in the same city where I lived. And from the very first day, it felt like home. Everything from the environment to the type of work I was doing was amazing. I was in perfect sync with the Chancellor, Dr. Hall, a professional, distinguished-looking man in his 50s who exuded confidence and was as tall as a pro basketball player. He was a handsome man with tan skin, fashionably styled salt and pepper hair, and an athletic physique. His eyes were greener than an emerald, and there was a warmth and kindness about him that immediately put me at ease. Although Dr. Hall was the most powerful person on campus, he took me under his wing and treated me much like the father figure I'd never had. I developed an instant respect for him and used the computer skills I taught myself at a safe house for abused women to impress him. And impressed he was. He was amazed with my ability to manage budgets, prepare meeting minutes, and develop presentations. And he showed his appreciation every day. I enjoyed my job and planned to work for Dr. Hall and Abram for many years to come. After working on my temp assignment for 2 months, Dr. Hall called me to his office to meet with him. "You're the best assistant I've ever had," he said with a smile. "I'm the only one who reminds me of a Nubian queen I saw in a movie yesterday." Thank you. It's my braids, isn't it?
We can have a whole read in here, okay? Just come on down and have that be the podcast, and we'd be done for time. And I think what I love about it is that you weave in this, even though it's very much based on your real life story. I love how you weave in this almost like a fictionalized version of it. And even though we know it's not fiction, I think it actually helps. I think when you're going through the trauma, especially, it helps you distance yourself, so you can really get what's happening. Yes. And you're not so much tied to, this is what I dealt with, because you're like, oh, I'm watching a movie. But up here, you don't think about the trauma maybe as much, and you really can focus on the solutions and how to prevent or how to get out of the situation that you're in.
That's why I created the voices for the characters, because I needed to find a way to make it less traumatizing.
Yes.
When I tried to read my first set of books, I couldn't. I would just immediately just start crying hysterically. I do a live event, and I made it to about chapter 8, and then I started bawling, and I said, I can't do this. I absolutely can't do this. And then I just canceled the rest of the live readings. And so I had to come up with a way where it didn't sting as much. I realized what these people did to me. So I came up with the character voices that made me laugh as I was reading. So it took the sting of the trauma I went through off the table, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. And I think what I love about it, because I think about when I was on medical leave and I wrote my book, I think a lot of people I made a lot of people nervous because everybody thought it was going to be a tell-all. And that's not at all what it was. It was, look, I'm writing this because I need to heal, but it's also for other women to help them out of their situation. So you have to find ways, even when you're writing out your pain, you have to do it in a way that you can actually reflect on it and come back and absorb it. And I think if we just do it from a raw perspective, I think that's very difficult to do.
It is.
And that's certainly not what I did. So I love that you did that. And I love that it was such a creative way to present, here are the things that happened to me, but I'm doing it in a way that you can actually immerse yourself into the characters and be transported in a way
Exactly.
to where you were at the time through the eyes of Ebony, of
Through the
course.
eyes of
And I really love that because I think it will resonate with a lot of women. It already has because I've seen the reviews on Amazon. And
yeah.
so it's clear that it's feeling a need that,
Mhm.
especially in this day and age, that we very much need.
Absolutely. So then you continue to progress through the story, and he gives her this compliment, and she giggles. It's her braids. And then he says, yes, it's your braids. Then he said he was going to buy out my contract with the temp agency and hire me permanently. How does senior secretary sound? It comes with a $5,000 raise. That sounds amazing. So that's when you get, I don't know if you can see this.
Yes, I can.
Inside the book are the gray boxes that give you the warning. So
I
as you're
love that.
progressing through the story, you're getting warning signs. You see that?
Yes.
And so this particular warning says, warning, never let verbal conversation stay verbal. This was a missed opportunity for Ebony. Don't let it be a missed opportunity for you. When someone gives you a verbal compliment about your work performance or makes a favorable promise about your career, never let those verbal conversations stay verbal. Turn them into written evidence that you can later use to protect yourself if your work is ever called into question or the favorable promise is broken. So as you're reading through the story, then the book says, now back to our story. So as you're reading through the story, you're getting all the warnings. See all the gray boxes?
Yes. And that's one thing that I have to say. I thought that was such a phenomenal way to do it because as you're getting wrapped up in the story, you ground the reader. Like, okay, you're reading the story, but also you're dealing with a situation, a very real situation.
That's
Let me bring you back down. Let me recenter you back to where what we're talking about and what the moral of this story is. It's not just a fun story. It's what she did wrong.
This is what I
and
did
what
wrong,
should have been avoided at all costs. So that is it was expertly done. I have to say that is phenomenal.
I'm really proud of this book because, girl, we were not professional writers, and those hush money books, I was in a dark place. I didn't know where to put commas. I didn't know the margin was ridiculous and the typos and you name it. But
look, you were called to write, not to edit.
That's right. That's right. And I didn't know. I didn't have a clue. But somehow, after selling that little humble book from the trunk of my car, God gave it wings, and then it spread around the world. And this book, I can honestly say, this book is my prize because now I know how to write. And
there you go.
And I think this is my most powerful book ever that my daughter Delilah and I put together. And as you progress through the story, each chapter, you're getting all of the warnings so you can recognize them in real time as they're happening. And then you can reflect on your own situation and say, wait a minute. So here's another warning. Now, fast forward a little bit. So now the boss is gone and she's got a new boss who is an absolute nightmare. And you don't even have to use your imagination. I actually show you this.
Slide it over a little bit so people can see it.
Okay,
yeah, there we go.
This way? Can you see it right here?
This way. A little more. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we all know what her name is.
Yes. I almost said it.
We're going to leave that there.
So you get the warning, right? You can speak to me and you can just feel the disdain.
It's it's all on her face.
Just ridiculous. So you're getting a warning now, and it says, to make matters worse, Miss Kelly removed my core responsibilities, the computer-based tasks that challenged me and brought me joy, without explanation, leaving me to focus on menial tasks like fetching her coffee, picking up her dry cleaning, and running personal errands. What was once a fulfilling role was reduced to servitude that chipped away at my confidence and professional identity. So then you get another warning. So you got another gray box with a big warning. It says, warning, the removal of duties. Miss Kelly removed Ebony's core duties and replaced them with menial tasks, a move that should raise significant red flags. In a toxic workplace, the removal of your duties is part of a calculated strategy designed to limit your exposure decrease your value, and make it easier to manage you out of your position. So the minute somebody starts taking away your duties, that 30-day clock starts ticking. So you're about to be fired. Okay?
Yeah.
So as you progress through the story, when you get to the end of each chapter, you get a summary of what the chapter was about.
Yeah.
Okay, but more importantly, you get the lessons and then you get the strategies. So let's just talk about the lessons for those two examples that we just gave. And we'll have some dialogue. So let's skip to the one about the removal of duties since we're pressed for time here. So let me find that. So for every warning at the end of the book, you have a summary. Okay?
Yeah.
And it goes into lesson 5 is the removal of duties. Into scenario. Miss Kelly stripped Ebony of her core responsibilities and replaced them with menial tasks such as making coffee and running errands. Ebony failed to document these changes, missing the opportunity to create the evidence she needed showing the shift in her responsibilities, okay? So I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And so I'm showing people these are the mistakes that you don't want to make, okay?
Right.
All right. So then you get the lesson. Documenting changes and responsibilities is critical when your role is diminished. Comparing your original duties with current tasks can highlight unfair treatment and protect you against claims of underperformance. So then it goes into the strategy. So every warning comes with the strategy and the template on how to fight it, okay? So in this particular case, it shows you how to write the email to address this particular warning. It says the strategy is the E in email stands for evidence, okay?
Yes.
Use emails to subtly contrast your previous significant contributions and your current menial task. Reference your original job description or achievements to demonstrate the change while maintaining professionalism. So the sample email in this case is, Dear Miss Kelly, I wanted to check in and ensure my work in preparing your coffee and running errands is meeting your needs. Okay. So number 1, that establishes that you've got me your coffee. Okay. Get in a nice
personal way,
so she doesn't realize I'm actually creating evidence being sugary sweet. I wanted to check in and ensure my work in preparing your coffee and running errands is meeting your needs. During my time working with Dr. Hall, I managed budgets, prepared meeting minutes, and developed presentations, which allowed me to contribute meaningfully. My computer skills are strong and diversified, and I love the opportunity to resume completing this work under your leadership. So by using the word resume, I'm letting people know you took these from me. I'm no longer doing these. I would like to resume doing these things. But I'm doing it in such a sugary sweet way that she has no clue. I'm really creating evidence that shows that I used to do this, and then you came along, and now I'm not doing that anymore. I'm running errands and getting your dry cleaning and your coffee.
To your point, Jackie, what I love about that is that it very clearly but subtly establishes a timeline of events.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm doing this now. You remember when I was doing that over there?
Yes.
And so I love how smooth that is and such a great way for people to realize you don't have to be confrontational.
No.
Emails have power, but the power comes in not showing your hand.
And they expect us to go nuclear. They want to be able to
all the time
call us the angry Black woman. Your emails are aggressive, where you're not approachable, because they want to use that against us.
Absolutely.
So we cannot feed into that.
Yes. And so I love that so much. And when I look at, because I was so fascinated, I think especially now that I've written a book, and I was so fascinated to really dive into yours, because I think in a lot of ways you think to yourself, what do I have to offer? If there's already all these books out there, why should I bring another book to the forefront? And to me, your book and your help, and when you came at a time in my life, I really needed it, and it was so valuable to me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you think to yourself, what do I bring to the table that isn't already out here? There's all these fantastic books. And what I love about your book, and as I looked at it, I look at your book as your book is for people who are in the lion's den.
Yes.
Like you are in the thick of it, a very limited window because the stuff has already hit the fan.
That's right.
And when I wrote my book, I wrote it, it's almost like a look back. Like, here are all the things that I should have done differently. This is the book I wish I had when I started out, and I would have avoided the lion's den altogether.
Oh, yes. Well,
But I love the fact
we did that because I lost my job so many times. And yes, I always went back and I fought, okay?
Right.
They were successful in getting me out of my six-figure job, okay? So now you can't keep a job because you keep experiencing the same thing.
Right.
So your resume looks like you job hop, but they don't realize you're being forced out because you're a Black woman. And because you don't get to stay long enough to really establish any long-term tenure, you're not able to get that retirement savings account, up where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And you're not really able to save the amount of money you really need to save. And so when you lose your income, you're literally living off of the savings that you've been able to accumulate while you try to find another job. But in my case, when that savings ran out, me and my girls kept finding ourselves repeatedly homeless. Me. I have the credentials they said they needed. I look on paper. I communicate effectively across the board. I was exceptional at the way that I did and approached my job, but I could not keep a job. And that does a lot to your mental state.
Absolutely.
But also it breaks you because you're now homeless and you're trying to figure out how you're going to feed your babies that are in the back seat of this car, okay? And so we created this book because we didn't want you to make the mistakes that I made in letting them force me out and then fighting back while I'm sitting here homeless. I wanted to show you the warning so you can actually keep your income intact and fight while you're there.
Absolutely. And that's why it's such a powerful book. And I hope everyone who is listening, if you don't have your copy already, I don't know what you're waiting for. You need this book. Because I think it absolutely, even if you're not dealing with this right now, surviving in a toxic workplace is going to help you in the future. Because it's going to help you be able to sidestep those, or you'll be able to spot it a mile away and you can see it coming. Absolutely. I think that's why it's so powerful. And one of the things that I always love to do, because I do talk about these unspoken rules in my book as well. And I came up with these 7 universal rules that I think for Black women always hold to be true. And so I'm curious to know from your perspective, as you have, just like many of us, Black women in corporate America, what is one unspoken rule that you think you have seen across, whether it's from your book or that you just feel like it's just no matter what, as long as you're a Black woman in corporate America, this is going to come up for you?
One of the themes that is consistent across the board, okay, there are always onboarding issues, okay, always. So no matter who you are, you're going to have onboarding issues. So you start your job, but you don't have access to the share or your computer is, I make this joke, okay? I make this joke. I can laugh about it now, but it was just ridiculous. They gave me equipment, okay? Gave me equipment that was older than dirt, okay? I am still convinced to this day that the computer system they gave me to do my job as a senior director was found in somebody's archaeological dig zone, okay? I'm serious because I couldn't get nothing done, okay?
Oh my gosh.
That computer froze about 7 times throughout the course of the day. And so I'm constantly rebooting. I'm constantly losing momentum, okay? Now, remember that group of people that's working together? I call them the minions, right? So you got the equipment that is not allowing you to be, you can't keep up with the quantity of work that this person over here in the same position at another campus is doing. also cannot keep up with the quality of work because the training they gave you was insufficient, that you're making mistakes, okay? So you can't keep up with the quality of work. You can't keep up with the quantity of work, okay?
Right.
In addition to that, to ensure that your mental state is suffering, they start doing something that I call the black workhorse, okay?
Oh, yes.
You know, and do you
Say
know
that.
how many black women are classified as salaried exempt in error and they don't know it? Okay.
I'm sure a
And
lot.
so I find a lot of women, black women, were put into salaried exempt positions. Now, on paper, it looks like this is a salaried exempt position, but in actuality,
It is not.
you are being micromanaged, so you don't have the authority that your job description says you have. Your job description says you have the ability to make high level decisions, but your toxic boss is not allowing you to assume that
Nope.
responsibility. You got to run everything by her so she can take credit for your work. Okay?
Okay.
And so you don't have that. You don't have the direct reports that your job description said you were going to get. And your job is misclassified as salaried
Yes.
exempt, even though on paper it looks like it. Now, they do that because they don't believe you're fully human. Okay? They believe that you are a black woman who was built for hard labor.
Yep.
And so they may give you a decent salary, but they're going to get their money's worth out of you.
They're going to get more than their money's worth.
Piling all this work
Yes.
on your back. And because you're salaried exempt, you're not getting paid to do
Right.
all of this extra work. So in many of our cases, we end up doing the work of 2, 3, sometimes 4 people.
I was at 5 when I left.
Yeah. And when they force us out of our jobs, do you know they have to hire 5 people for the work that they
Yeah.
were piling on you?
100%.
Okay, they got to hire a whole crew for the workload that they were piling on you, so that in addition to the trauma you're suffering as you teach yourself how to do your job because they didn't provide you with proper training. And the equipment they gave you is older than dirt. They got it in an archaeological dig somewhere. But you got a fast computer at home. So you're going to go home. You're going to work all day there. And then you're going to go home and work all night. Okay.
Oof.
I remember falling asleep with my laptop sitting on my lap in bed, trying to just squeeze a little bit more work in before I just couldn't work anymore. And in addition to that, okay, so in addition to you trying to learn how to do this job, and
Right.
you know you're suffering, you're working nights, you're working weekends, you're working holidays, you're working through your lunches, you're working at night.
Yeah.
You don't have time for your family. Your children are thinking you are a
Nope.
workaholic and that you don't have time for them and you don't have time for your spouse. And so those relationships are suffering as you try to keep a
Yeah.
roof over your head. And then in addition to that's when they start piling on that extra work, okay? And the expectation is that, what are you complaining about? You're a black woman. You can work longer, harder, stronger, faster than the average person because you're part horse. You're not full woman, okay?
Right.
You've got that strong black woman, you know, you can handle it because you are strong. Have you ever heard anybody say, oh, look there's a strong white woman over there?
It'll be a first if I ever hear it.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like all the stereotypes that we talk about and we're predisposed to already prove them right. So that's where we're always waiting for that next where they can say, see, I knew it. I knew you were angry. You just raised your eyebrow. Or
yeah.
you're a little less than pleasant. Oh, I knew that you had an attitude.
Oh,
because
you're too
you're all
quiet.
that
You
way.
don't speak up in the meetings. So
You can't win for losing.
No. And if you say something, you're trying to monopolize the meeting. You need to give other people a chance to talk. Okay.
Oh, that's almost verbatim what I was told when I was in a leadership meeting. After the meeting, I had my one-on-one with my boss, and she
Yeah.
said to me, "You don't always have to have the answers all the time. Let someone else speak, even if they're wrong."
Same thing. Same thing.
That is just goofy
It's
behavior, in my
ridiculous.
opinion.
And see, and all of this, believe it or not, is part of the playbook. And then
Yes, I believe it.
don't even let me get started on HR. I've dedicated a whole
Woo,
chapter to
girl,
HR.
that's going to be a whole other, we have to do a whole other episode just on that alone. In fact, I said, when I wrote my book, I said, we don't have enough time I have to dedicate a whole separate
Yes.
area, because that in itself is, they all follow the same
Yeah.
playbook. They all
Yeah.
follow the same rules. It's staggeringly amazing how very cookie cutter HR is
Yes.
across the organization,
Yes.
all organizations. But I think the bottom line that we all need to remember is that HR is not here for you.
No.
They're here for the company.
That's right.
Bottom line.
And I had one particular situation where the person that I reported to was actually my best friend. And she was in cahoots in the end with HR and the new CEO. And you can't even trust your own people. I don't know if you saw, there was a post that I made on LinkedIn with a picture that got quite the attention. But you know me, I give it to you straight, no chasers. This image that I attached to this post was of this bubbly black woman. She's sitting at her desk, she's typing, she's got a smile on her face, she's feeling good about her job. And then off in the corner, you see this other black woman, and she's staring, and she's got a nice shiny little knife in her hand. Okay.
Yep.
Because sometimes the person targeting you, trying to get you out of your career. Let me put it to you another way, okay? Malcolm X said the most disrespected, unprotected, and neglected person in America is the black woman.
Absolutely.
But there are times, and it is very common, where the very person disrespecting, unprotecting, and neglecting the black woman is another black woman.
100%. I actually call that rule number 4 in my book. There can only be one.
Yep.
Very much. It's a common phenomenon. I think we're only just now starting to talk about it. I think you were one of the first people to really bring it to the forefront, because I think it was like that dirty little secret. We didn't want to put the dirty laundry out there. We didn't want to make it seem like we have infighting. Of course we do. Well, and I think that is one of the worst kinds of betrayals, because I definitely feel that out of all the betrayals that I had over my career, the worst ones came from black women.
I agree.
And still do.
I agree. I absolutely agree. In fact, I did a LinkedIn live event that brought in over 1,000 people, and I streamed it to YouTube. And so if you go and you find this video, it calls when the workplace bully is another black woman. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, what I found interesting, and I really appreciated this woman, she was watching the stream on YouTube live, and she added a comment, and this is still out there, so if anybody wants to watch it, I've got a lot of content on my YouTube channel. But this woman commented on the stream, and she said, I have to admit, I was the black woman that you described. Because in my post on LinkedIn, I said, you're being targeted by another black woman who ridiculously thinks there can only be one magical Negro in this organization. Okay? Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And absolutely. So that's what this woman said on YouTube. She said, that was me. There can only be room for one of us to be successful, and it was going to be me. So I was the one, she said, doing the sabotaging, doing everything you described. And she says, looking back, I feel bad. I feel shame. Hopefully, and she said, hopefully you can just understand where my mind was. And I can, sadly. That was something that they taught us back in slavery.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how they kept us subjugated as long as they did.
That's right.
We can talk about that for a whole another hour. And honestly, we could talk for a whole couple more hours, but I know that you have things to do. And I promise I wouldn't keep you forever. And unfortunately, so do I.
Well, we always have so much fun when we talk. I could just talk to you for hours.
But what I like to officially don guests as friends of the pod, which means that I expect that you will come back and visit us again.
I would love to.
Because you always have such fantastic gems that we absolutely need to get out there. And so before we go, I think it's really important. I want people to know, how do they get in touch with you? How can they connect with you if they're going through their own toxic workplace hell? let them know how they can get in touch with you, please.
You can send an email to JacquieAbram@gmail.com and spelled just like you see here on the screen, Jacquie Abram, all one word. You can reach me. I practically live on LinkedIn because that's where
as we do all.
Yes, that's where the majority of my business comes from. And so that's where I post the most content. So I post things on LinkedIn that you won't see anywhere else. Not only will you get good content because I do keep it real, I give it to you straight, no chaser.
Yes.
And like I said, I've got a LinkedIn live event in 2 days that has over 5,000 people registered. This particular event is called White Tears and Black Trauma. I don't mince words.
Nope.
Yes.
We're not doing that here.
That's right. I say, what I want, how I want, when I want, voice for the voiceless, and I don't care who you are, okay? You could be a supervisor, you could be a sunvisor, you could be an advisor, you could be a Budweiser, but you...
Whichever you want, it don't matter.
But you're going to hear it from me straight, no chaser.
And that's what we're all about here. That is one of the things I love about this podcast. Is what I set out to do is to 100% transparency, because that's what we need. We don't need any more fluff or fakery or foolishness. We need the real, especially now in this day and age. Okay,
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. So, of course, I'm going to put all of your links. So not to worry, guys. All of the links are going to be in the description. So you will know exactly how to get in touch with her. Of course, her book is available on Amazon.
Yes.
Surviving in a Toxic Workplace. You need this book if you are in the middle of your own personal hell. You need to know exactly how to get out there, how to get out of that. So please be sure to get her book today from Amazon.
And if you want to talk to me about your specific situation. Okay.
Absolutely.
I will give you a 1-hour consultation at no cost, but you have to buy and start reading this book.
There you go.
If you want me to help you, you've got to have your eyes opened on this playbook. It is real and it is devastatingly effective. If you don't know all of the elements of this playbook, you're really setting yourself up for trouble because, they laid off 284,000 people from the federal government. So the market, the market is overly saturated with people trying to find work. This is not the time to lose your position because somebody is forcing you out. And there are things that we can do to slow them down, or you leave on your own terms with your head held high and your dignity intact. Okay?
Absolutely. So guys, you heard that here. In exchange for purchasing her book, you get a one-on-one consultation and no additional cost. You can't beat that. Okay.
That's right.
She knows a lot about how to navigate toxic workplaces and how to walk away with some coins in your pocket. So I highly recommend you better get that book and get you your consultation. Okay.
All right.
Jacquie, thank you so much for coming on here. It has been such an absolute pleasure. We will definitely have to do this again. So Thursday, April 24th, guys, if you're on LinkedIn, you will see the dates and the times. So please definitely check it out.
Click the attend button.
Okay, perfect.
You will be able to access the replay.
Okay, so we'll let folks know because I think by the time they get this, it will already have happened. But hopefully we can put the replay on the description as well.
It will be available.
Thank you so very much, Jacquie, for your time. As always, it's such a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another fantastic episode of Black Women in Corporate America. And as always, until next time, take care.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Black Womaning in Corporate America, the podcast. If today's episode spoke to you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, or submit a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. And don't forget to grab your copy of Playing the Game While Black Womaning in Corporate America, available now wherever books are sold. Until next time, take care.